Hey everyone, Jason here with another episode of The Gamer Side. So today I'm going to do a review of Waddle from Allplay. One of the newest games from Allplay. Came in a 3-pack on Kickstarter. Waddle, Twinkle Twinkle, I forget what the third one was. I don't hear many people talking about whatever the third one was. But Waddle was the one that I backed. I was most interested in. I love this line that Allplay has. Alibis, lures sitting right here. I've got 8 others over there. I really love this line in general. So Waddle, obviously about penguins, which is an adorable theme. I love the style of the artwork, strategy game. And so I had high hopes for this one. And spoiler, did not live up to my expectations. Now, does that mean it's a bad game? I don't know. I don't think so. I just don't think it's quite there yet. So here's the thing. So the gameplay itself is very interesting. I think it's a good strategic game about building waddles. By the way, what's a waddle? It's not just what the penguins do. A waddle is what you call a group of penguins on ice. I know that because the back of the box told me so. And apparently a group of penguins on water is called a raft. So some interesting little fun facts there. In this game, you are trying to build the biggest groups of waddles, the biggest groups of penguins that you can on this ice floe. Now, the ice is made up of these hexagonal tiles, really nice artwork, really nice tile components. They work well. You assemble a roughly hex-shaped kind of blob in the middle of the table with all these little tiles. And then one of the, there's watering holes or fishing holes as well strewn about. And one of the hexes will be an active hex at any given time. And they're numerically ordered, and the quantity is based on the number of players in the game. So you might have numbers 1 through 12. And so number 1, the hex numbered number 1, that's the active hex. And on every player's turn, they have to place a penguin around, adjacent to that active hex, if there are any spaces left. Now, you either will place one of your penguins out, or you will say, I pass, which means you will no longer place adjacent to this active hex, but you will be first in line to place where it jumps to next, the number 2, because you might want to have strategically placed penguins around number 2 and maybe don't care as much about the remaining hexes around number 1. And then it progresses through and it bounces, the active hex bounces around throughout the game until you get all the way to the end, and then every hex is filled on the entire board by definition. So the strategic choice of where to place your penguin and when to pass and let other people fill it up. By the way, if there's only one player left who has not passed, they may not pass. They have to fill up all those hexes with their penguins. They have no choice. And then it moves on. Now, there's this cute little board with marbles that basically keeps track of the turn order. It's a gimmick. You could have done that just as easily with tokens on a flat board. I think I was hoping that marble mechanic would have been a little more integral into the gameplay. You know, you pull a marble out, everything else flows down, then you put the marble at the top, and it ultimately is a gimmick. It did not need to be that 3-dimensional object with the marbles. Does it get in the way? I don't know. It just didn't fully add to it. It's supposed to be like, I think, sliding on the ice, have that kind of feel to it. It was cool, but in the end, it, for me, felt more like a gimmick than anything else with the marble track there. But you are essentially path building. At the end of the game, you're going to score each of your groups of penguins. You're going to score based on its size up to a maximum of 8 or 10 in a 2-player game. And that'll give you the most points so it's incrementally more points the larger the group size of your waddles. And then you will also score the majority that surrounds the fishing holes where there are fish with point values. Whoever has the highest majority of penguins surrounding that fishing hole gets the highest point fish from that fishing hole. And then whoever has the next highest majority quantity will get the next highest scoring fish, and so on. That's the base game. Then I will also review here the expansion called Orcas and Ice Floes. Orcas and Ice Floes adds 3 very small, simple modules. Number 1, Ice Floes. This is a nice strategic add to the game. Little tokens, everyone has 1. You can use it once per game. After you place a penguin, you can place an ice floe on an adjacent water hex. And that means that penguins on one side and the other of that hex, or any of the 6 sides, are considered adjacent to one another. So it lets you join potentially 2 separate groups of penguins into one large group, which, as I mentioned, is key to how you score the game. That's one. I like that one. Number 2, it adds eggs. Eggs are placed in different nest locations on hexes throughout the game, and if you place a penguin, one of your penguins, on a nest with an egg, you can take the egg. Each egg is worth 2 points at the end of the game, but more importantly, each egg gives you a one-time use ability. You can flip it when you place a penguin out. Instead of placing adjacent to the active hex, you can place your penguin 2 spaces away from the active hex. That's crucial, and it's a great little strategic layer that it adds because, again, that being forced to place around, you might not want one of your penguins right around it, or maybe you did and you placed one, you wanted that, but then it comes back to you and there's still more hexes. You don't want the one maybe further away, but you want one adjacent to the first one that you placed. Basically, it lets you go further out, have more influence, and create those groupings of penguins. Bottom line. So the eggs added yet another really nice layer. And the third module is Orcas. Orcas are these large orca tokens that you would place on, there's 3 of them, I think, and you place them on 3 specific water holes where there's a little orca icon. They cover artwork, they cover the numbers, they're gigantic, they're not 3-dimensional. They could be. So much. Anyway, we'll get to the components because there's so much that could be 3-dimensional component. Plastic pieces, wooden pieces, whatever. The orcas add a scoring mechanism very similar to the trophies in Lure, which is a +7 or -7 points at the end of the game. Very big swings. In this case, if you have the most penguins surrounding orca spaces at the end of the game, you get -7 points because you're being hunted. And if you have the least penguins surrounding orca spaces, you get +7 points at the end of the game. So that's it. That's how it works. I can't really hide my opinions. I think my opinions are already clear. I don't love that module, and I'll explain a little bit more why afterwards. But I think the scoring is volatile or swingy, and the components. Well, I just did explain it. The components cover this so much of the stuff on the tiles. In any case, okay. So that's the base game, how it's played. That's the expansion and how the 3 different modules are played. Overall, what do I like about Waddle and what do I not like about Waddle? I love the theme. I love penguins. They're adorable. Everyone loves penguins. I like the tiles and their artwork and their quality. Totally fine with the components in that regard. I really like the strategy of placing your penguins out. Where do you place? When do you choose to pass? When do you choose to use your eggs if you have the expansion? When do you choose to use that ice floe? And how that active hex moves from here to there next, and then over there, and then back over here throughout the game until you get to the end of that sequence. I really like the strategy of this game in such a small box. I think it's a really neat play on those strategic elements. What do I not like about Waddle? The components should have been, so much of this should have been 3-dimensional. There should have been 3D wooden penguins at the least, if not little molded penguins. I get that molds are expensive, but wooden pieces, could have been done as an add-on here, a deluxe add-on. And Allplay does this with so many other games. They're great at creating these beautiful wooden pieces. Why aren't there wooden penguin options here? And orcas, for that matter. The orcas should also have been. And by the way, not just the penguins, that starting hex. The active hex, what it is a very thin cardboard outline of a hex with a hollow middle. And you place this flat token on the hex that's currently the active hex. And that indicates, okay, we have to place our penguins around that. And then you pick that up and you move it to the next one. But picking this flat token up that's stringy and kind of hollow and thin is so awkward, and then placing that and picking it up, and you have to do this like 15 times, 12 times, whatever, throughout the game. So that should have also been, like, I actually used, it's sitting right here, I used a D4 that has this cool blue and purple icy look to it. I use that as the active hex. I just put that down. That was way more interesting, beautiful, and easy to move around, as hard as it is to pick up a D4. It was 10 times easier than picking up that flat token. So many components in this game could have been, should have been available as upgrades. And I'm surprised they didn't, and frankly, they probably will at some point, because I suspect I'm not the only one with that commentary. So maybe they will come out with something. And by the way, my rating would increase even if I pay extra for it. My rating for the game will increase, and it will stay in my collection if I had better components to play with. I'll just flat out say that. Okay, so what else do I not like? I don't love how long it takes to score at the end of the game. Now, scoring is not, I'm not going to say it's complicated scoring, but it is multiple layers, multiple waves of looking across the board. Like, okay, first thing we're going to score is the groups of penguins. And even a group of one penguin is worth 1 point. So you have to scour, let's say I'm going to look at my penguins, which is maybe the blue penguins. So, okay, I got one there, that's 1 point. One there, that's 1 point. Two there, that's whatever two is, 3 points maybe. And then I have that big group in the middle. That's what you want, right? I have a big group of 8. So, okay, 36 points for that. But then I have those 3 and those, did I already count those 3? Did I count those 4? And this is just me. Okay, so now you figure it out and you get to the end of just my penguins. That's mine. Now we do the same thing for the next player. Then the same thing for the next player. Then the same thing for the next player. That's just penguins. Okay? Now we did that, and we marked those scores down. Now we move to the watering hole, the feeding holes, fishing holes. And, okay, we got to figure out who's the majority around this feeding hole, who's the second majority around this feeding hole, divvy up the fish. Then go to the next feeding hole, divvy up those. Next feeding hole, figure out that, divvy up those. Did we already do this fishing hole or this fishing hole? So you go in order. You could use the token again to try to, go in numerical order or whatever, but it's another whole wave. And then if you're playing with the orcas, it's another whole wave where you have to look at each orca and count all the penguins for each player surrounding all the orca spaces and then compare those totals. It's a lot of scoring. And I generally don't love these games where almost the scoring takes as long or longer than the gameplay itself. Now, I don't want to over dramatize this. It's not complicated. It felt more cumbersome than I wanted it to be. I'll just say that. So, okay, fiddly-factor for gameplay setup, low. Not much of a problem setting it. You got the board pieces. You got to lay them out in whatever order. You got the marble track to set up. You got tokens to lay out. Low. Not none, but low. Gameplay fiddly-factor is, I'm calling this medium. The marble track seems a little overcomplicated and unnecessary for what it's doing. The tokens, the flat penguin tokens, are just kind of annoying. They should have been 3D. They should be deluxe upgraded bits. And the scoring, unfortunately, does drag down. It adds to that fiddly-factor. So a medium fiddly-factor. Pimp potential for this game is off the charts. I mean, seriously, the active hex should have been a 3D thing. The penguin should be 3D. The orcas, even the eggs, could be three-dimensional little objects. So, I am coming in at a 6.5 for Waddle and a 6.5 for the expansion. But I'm not getting rid of the game. 6.5 tends to be the threshold, that and below, where I'm like, it's not going to stay in my collection. I am going to keep it in my collection because I love this line of games. I love what this game could become. I do really enjoy the strategy. The scoring and those waves will never go away, even with 3D components. But I think if I had better bits to play with, that I would be very happy to have this one stay in my collection, either being a 7, possibly a 7.5, because I think the strategic depth is there. It's just somewhat annoying to play with the base components. Not even base components. There just are no upgraded components at the moment that I could find. Maybe Etsy will come out with something. I might even 3D print something myself. But in any case, that is my overview for Waddle, and I want to see more from it. I'm gonna keep it around and hold out hope, and we'll try it again with different player counts. Played it with 2, played it with 4. Did I play it with 3 yet? I don't think so. So we'll see. But 6.5 for Waddle for me, and we're gonna keep our eye on it. I'm not getting rid of it yet. Thanks so much for watching. Take care.